Hello everybody, Dave here, and as you'll know from the video clips, I am progressing with the Arthur chair, and obviously I've been doing most of it on fast forward, but I just wanted to do basically just to speak for a little while because basically something happened yesterday which shook me up a bit really. And at the end of the day, one of the reasons for me doing these videos is for my own mental state and my own mental health. So when something happens, it's useful to talk about it, and even if you haven't got someone to talk about it to, quite often just saying it can help. I'm sure we've all heard the analogy that even just writing stuff down can help get it off your chest. Now I'm not much of a writer. Well, I can be, but physically I'm not much of a writer. But I'm quite happy to speak, usually. And so I'm just getting my next box of gloves sorted out while I'm talking. So yesterday, what was I doing yesterday? I was doing a number of things. Doing video editing, doing a bit of voiceover stuff. I was working a bit on the chair, and then it got to a point where I decided to restock my fridge with soft drinks, because I've been getting soft drinks in cans, in crates. Not well, it sounds bad in crates, but in packs of like 24 because it's cheaper. And these gloves feel different to these gloves, even though they should be the same. So I was restocking my fridge with the drinks that I'd got, and when I'd finished doing that, it turns out that I'd accidentally done something. At least I think that's when I was doing it, because basically I had a box that I moved, and I kind of remember knocking something, but I thought I'd knocked something that didn't really matter. Turns out I didn't. So once I'd finished doing that, I went to sat back at the computer, put my headset on to do some more video editing and some audio work. And then after a while, all of a sudden, I was like, okay, that's odd, I can smell like sort of burning, sort of like toast or cheese or something. Something's burning. And I actually thought perhaps it was downstairs. And then I turned around and saw smoke sort of billowing from the kitchen area. Now I've got an open plan living room, kitchen, so I could just see the smoke billowing. So obviously I jump up, go over to the kitchen, and excuse me, I've got a deep fat fryer that was on top of a chopping board, which is what I use to keep it level, which was on top of the hobs. I've got electric hobs. And it would appear that when I moved the box, I'd accidentally knocked one of the dials for one of the hobs and turned it on full blast. So as I sort of get over to the kitchen, the smoke pouring out, literally as soon as I get there, all of a sudden from underneath the chopping board, flames. Now I'm shitting myself, because I've got a fire on an electric fucking hob, with plastic melting, and a fire underneath a deep fat fryer. Now if the deep fat fryer goes up, I'm fucked. So a bit of panic set in, but right, hob off, move the deep fat fryer, towel, water, move the plastic into the, move the chopping board into the sink, and I've still got flames. So even though I've moved the chopping board now, the actual sort of circular plate, that's just on fire. So I'm on that with cold towel, and it's burning through the towel, so I'm getting another towel. So took a couple of towels, to get the fire out. And then I turned around and my apartment was just full of smoke. Now this was at what, 10:30, 11:15, so it was quite late at night. So opened up all the windows, had the extractor fan on, had my tower fans on, trying to blow the smoke out the windows. I've still got smoke billowing off the chopping board that's in the sink, even though that's got cold water going on it. One of the towels that I'd used is in the sink being covered in water, and that's still billowing smoke. Yeah, so anyway, got very lucky that I caught it when I did, because this is the thing that's been playing on my mind. Had I smelt it a moment later and got to the cooker a moment later, then it would have already been on fire. Whereas I got there just as it went from being smoke to fire. That's lucky as fuck. And to be fair, that whole sort of situation shook me. Now, obviously the apartment was very smoky last night. It stunk of melted plastic. It was not nice. I ended up wearing a mask for probably for the next 2 or 3 hours, because I didn't want to be out of that room in case anything happened on the cooker. And yeah, it spooked me. I mean, my heart rate, God knows what it was, but I could feel I was very on edge. Now, eventually I managed to get everything sorted out. Even managed to sort of clean the hob off last night, get as much plastic off it as possible. And at some point this evening, I am actually going to turn that hob on and see what happens. Because if there's any residue left on it, it's either going to burn off or going to set fire. So if I'm stood there like waiting for it, I couldn't deal with it. But I don't want to leave it and forget about it and then use it at one point and then perhaps go and do something while I've got a pot of water boiling or something like that. So yeah, I'm very on edge still about stuff like that. But it's one of those things where I think it's in our nature with fire. Fire can save us, but it can destroy us. And by saving us, it's like if we were living out in the wild still, you ain't surviving in winter if you ain't got a fire. Right? So fire saves you. It can provide you cookable food, or cooked food and things like that. But if a fire's out of control, it can be extremely fucking deadly. And that's what scared me last night. Up until the point where I kind of realised, well, hang on a minute. If I hadn't have had the chopping board on there with a deep fat fryer on it, which still, I mean, you may wonder why I'm doing that. Basically, so when I'm using the deep fat fryer, it's underneath the extractor fan. So, and I don't use the hobs when I'm using the deep fat fryer. Although now I'm thinking I might have to use it somewhere else. So I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. So yeah, so that spooked me up until I realised I'm going to sneeze again. Sorry about that. Yeah, up until I realised that had the chopping board not been there, I probably would have never known that the hob was on. And to be honest, to me that's kind of a bit of a scarier prospect, because I'm one of those people that could easily have left it on all night and I wouldn't have known, which in itself would be extremely dangerous. But I'm also the kind of person that could have easily got up today, gone to the shops, done a bit of shopping, come back and put my shopping bag on the hob. May sound stupid, and it does, it sounds fucking stupid. Why would you do that? Well, it's a small kitchen, and there isn't a lot of surface areas. And if you've got a bag of shopping and the only area to put something, because you're a bit of a messy cunt sometimes, is on the hob, you do it. But if the hob's on, you're in trouble. So I've had all that going sort of through my mind over the last day, or well, since yesterday. And I really was on edge for a long time last night. Didn't get to bed till 6:30, 7 o'clock this morning. I just wasn't at ease or comfortable with going to bed. And I think it helped in a way, actually cleaning the oven top, the hobs, and trying to make sure I got all as much melted plastic off as I can, and I am still going to give it another clean as well. But yeah, so that was weird. But then also, I mean, this all happened before I'd actually had a chance to do myself some dinner. So last night, and then sat there, sort of getting hungrier and hungrier, actually afraid to cook some food in case I end up with a fire. And so yeah, so I didn't eat until really late, so a bit fucked up. But what probably made it worse is that when I did come to do something to eat last night, I went to turn the light on at the extractor fan, and that goes, I'm like, what the fuck? So then I'm having to spend time finding where the fused switch is for the extractor fan, because the light's just blown up in it and the fan's not working. So eventually find where the switch is for that, hidden in a fucking cupboard. Switch the fuse out, fan works, light don't. So fucking great, so I saw the bulb out in that. But in the grand scheme of things, it could have been a lot fucking worse. But it doesn't change the fact that it's that it has spooked me. But it also has made me sort of realise it's like, okay, I was able to deal with that with no real harm. But if it was anything bigger, I'd be in trouble. So it would make sense to get some fire extinguishers. Wouldn't need to necessarily be big ones, but it'd make sense. I mean, I've got electrical stuff here. I've got cooking stuff. And I've got tools. I mean, anything can fucking ignite, really. And as winter's coming in, I'm going to be wanting to put the heaters on. And it's so easy to, I don't know, accidentally leave something up against the heater, or not realise that something is up against the heater and it ends up catching fire. I mean, stuff like that fucking happens. Or even, I mean, I'm sure we've all seen the pictures on Facebook of people who have left phones on charge on their beds, or on their pillows, or next to their pillows. I mean, I've fallen asleep with my phone on and woken up with it extremely fucking hot. And they can catch fire, especially if the charging cables that we use in our cheap ones that are not as safe. But also it's just the general heat that they can create. There's a lot, but well, I don't know the statistics, but from what I see, there's too many people dying from that kind of situation. Well, if you wake up in the middle of the night with your bed on fire, what the fuck are you going to do? Probably not a lot. But at least if you got a fire extinguisher, you got half a chance of doing something about it before you have to call someone, or while you're calling someone. So yeah, opened my eyes a bit last night and really did make me very uncomfortable, which is why I thought I would talk about it, because it has kind of rocked me a bit. So yeah, and I mean, it's one of those things. Yeah, people. It wasn't that big a thing, but it's kind of like if you have near-death experiences, nothing bad has happened, but it could have done, and that is that kind of realisation of that and dealing with that, which isn't always easy to cope with. So yeah, but also, I mean, it even spiralled into, obviously I made a stupid mistake. I did something and I had no idea that I'd done it, and then I'm questioning, okay, well, fuck it, well, is there anything else that I've done? I spent some time over at the folks on Friday. Have I done anything there that could result in disaster? And yeah, and sometimes you have to just get out of your head. So hopefully I'm going to try and get this chair finished this evening. It's already, I think it's gone 6 o'clock, but I didn't get up till late, so I'm going to be awake late tonight. But I would like to get this, the chair finished. With the chair, okay, in full hindsight, yes, should have painted it first, then done the resin fill, would have been so much easier and much better. The paint eventually did go on quite nicely, took 3 or 4 coats to get a nice colour finish on it. The feel of finish, not great, but I managed to sand it down to a decent level, doing it very gently. The varnish is now, I mean, the varnish is interesting. I think it probably still needs a couple more coats. So these 4 pieces I've been working on have had 2 coats front and back. So they've got quite a nice shine on them, but I think it needs more, maybe 1 more, maybe 2 more coats, and not necessarily for the look, but I do like how the lettering is looking on there. But yeah, not necessarily for the look of it. It's more to do with, for me on this, the varnish is more to do with being a protective layer. So these 4 have already had 2 coats each. So what I'm actually going to do today is try and get 2 coats on these, which could be a little bit awkward, but hopefully shouldn't take too long. Now the other thing that I'd done as well was I'd mentioned about wanting to protect to the bottom, the runners here, because with the paint it could crack and peel off or whatever, or damage the wood. The wood could get damaged, or even if the varnish is on it, it might not protect it enough. Well, I had talked about getting something to potentially go on there, and what I decided to do was try and get some rubber strips, which I thought would protect it perfectly, that stick on. I spent a long time on Amazon looking for rubber strips, thinking I'd found exactly the perfect thing, but and the reason it took so long is because I'm searching for rubber strips, rubber sealants, all that kind of stuff, and a lot of it was coming up as foam rubber, and I don't want foam, because foam's just going to, I mean, there's no point in me putting stuff like this on the bottom of it. It ain't going to do shit. It's going to break apart and fucking, yeah, it'd be fucked. I want rubber so that it's firm but sturdy. So I spend an absolute age, and what I've ended up with is this, and I'm not overly happy with it as it's turned out. You might not be able to see it too well, but it almost looks like a rubber foam composite. It's not quite foam, but it's not quite rubber either. It's kind of like it's a very light rubber, but I'm going to try it and see how it goes. The width should be absolutely fine. Yeah, the width will be fine, but it's just about protecting the underneath. I mean, to be honest, this is actually draft excluding rubber seal. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what it's for or where it comes from. If it's going to do the job, that's the important bit for me. And even if the strip is too wide, it can be split in half, so it can be brought down a bit. So that will be the final piece to go on it, probably. But like I say, I do want to get as much stuff done on this today as I can. So my aim is to get the 2 coats on that. That's my goal, right? If I manage to get that done and I'm capable of doing more, then I will do more. And what I will do is I will then give these a light sanding. I'm probably using my new wet dry sanding sheets. I've bought some specifically. Got a load of them. So they're hook and loop, which is basically Velcro, and they go up to about 2,000 or 3,000? 2,000. But that's enough. Yeah, so they're actual wet and dries. Now I'm not going to use it with my power sander because of the noise, but I can use them by hand on this, no problem. So I could try using them. So yeah, so I'll give these a light sanding, then give them another coat of varnish. Hopefully it will only need the one more coat and then I'll be happy, but if it needs two, then fair enough. At the end of the day, I'm putting varnish on paint, which is not what I've been used to so far. I've been used to putting varnish on stain, so directly onto wood, whereas obviously the paint has created a layer, a more prominent layer between the varnish and the piece. What I probably won't be able to do today because of the noise I might have to make putting it together is actually putting the chair together, because I had to use a mallet and a piece of wood to get it apart. I might need to use a mallet and a piece of wood to put it together. So that I'll probably save until tomorrow if I get it finished. Now if I don't get it finished tonight, I'm not going to stress too much about it, because I can always do a bit more tomorrow, but I am going to crack on, so let's do that.
you.